Good morning. It's November 25th, 2022. It's my birthday. I turned 28 today. And reflecting on this past year, 27 was a really humbling year. A lot of things have changed. This is a video about everything that I had learned in that time at the age of 27. So I've got like 27 life lessons from being 27. And before we dive into lesson one, the other aspect of this video that, like, in terms of the reason I'm making this video, was with a lot of the people that I have been reconnecting with since I moved back to San Diego earlier this year. Basically what I had realized was when you ask how someone's doing, the answer is typically the same. You get, oh, I'm good, staying busy, same old. It's very surface level. So to kind of help bridge that gap, to really like reconnect with someone, get to know someone, really know like how they're doing. What's the biggest life lesson you learned this year so far? Just any, or the most recent life lesson. So life lessons, learning, that's been like a really big, point for me to kind of reconnect with people. It's been a really great way to kind of deepen relationships that I either had already built previously, or people that I'm meeting now, like new people that I'm meeting. Had to take a brief pause on this run because had some visitors and wanted to wish me a happy birthday. Check it out. Look who it is. It's time to dive right in. So life lesson number one comes from one of my favorite shows of all time. Recently rewatched it. So instead of saying this quote, I think I'm just gonna put the clip in here. So life lesson number one comes from Ted Lasso.
You just listen to your gut, okay? And on your way down to your gut, check in with your heart. Between those two things, they'll let you know what's what.
I think we're ready for lesson number two. I realized if something is bothering me, if something, whether it's someone or something, like, it's important to talk about those things. It's important to kind of make those things known. It doesn't make it a big deal just by talking about it. But at that point, you're just really talking about your feelings. So that was a big lesson that I learned at 27. That was lesson number two. All right, this next life lesson, lesson number three. This one goes out to all my overthinkers out there. And this lesson has some relation to the last one, but it goes a little bit further. So what I mean by that is, for lesson number three, we have basically, whenever we have feelings, right? We have these feelings, and whenever I overthink, especially if it's a long period of overthinking, I had realized that I was it got to another layer of like having feelings about those feelings. And in a way, I was judging myself for those feelings. And the lesson in that is, well, one, don't do that. But more so, whenever we have any sort of feelings about someone, something, about ourselves, to not let it get to that next level of having feelings about your feelings, but more so just like, all right, these are my feelings, and kind of getting to the next step, which is figuring out why you have those feelings and focusing more on that versus kind of, I guess, judging yourself for having the feelings that you do. And when you figure out why, you kind of just have to make sure you take action accordingly from there. Lesson number four. So lesson number four for me, those that know me really well know that I try to pack as much into my day as possible. Like, I basically do not have any time if anything just takes longer than it needs to. I don't a lot for that, because I'm basically just very hard on, I just got to get it done in this amount of time, and that's that. Which, as a result of that, I'm always late to everything. Always just like falling behind on stuff. And what I realized is that the lesson within that is that life is essentially a marathon, and although like I could say like, oh, I'm trying to max out my day, I'm trying to get as much done, try to be as productive in that day as possible, that, you know, I'm actually burning myself out, and basically I'm just exhausted all the time, where I'm not able to accomplish as much as I think I can. Whereas if I just play the long game, give myself that wiggle room in between tasks, in between errands, in between things that I need to do in order to accomplish those goals, because the way that I've been doing it has definitely not been sustainable and hasn't really led to the growth and development that I've wanted personally. So that would be lesson number 4, is that life is a marathon. For lesson number 5, pretty sure it's number 5. For lesson number 5, whenever it comes to having a difficult conversation or talking about how you feel with someone, you know, we often say, at least for me personally, like, oh, it's not the right time, or it's the wrong time. When I realized the lesson in that is that there's never or there's very few circumstances where there's like a wrong time to do something. There's like the obvious ones that I'm not really going to talk about, but you know, there's like obvious circumstances where it's like, hey, you know, something that's not related to whatever's happening right now, probably shouldn't talk about it. But the flip side of that coin is that there's never, ever, ever a right time to do something. So the best time is always just right now, or the second best time is as soon as you can. Just by saying it, pretty obvious one, which is only you know what's best for you. And this one tends to be a lot harder to, I think, realize or remember when life gets complicated and messy, because life does that. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of situations that people that are probably closest to you will have opinions about or feelings about, and you know, they, at the end of the day, the reason they feel that way, the reason they have those feelings, especially if it's going kind of, I guess, against what you're feeling, the important thing to remember is that at the end of the day, they just really don't want to see you get hurt. And so it's coming out of a place of love. That's usually how it is. I think a lot of people talk about like, oh, if someone doesn't support you, like, write them out of your life, you know. I think that's inherently toxic, but more so to just think about, like, you're not really addressing, like, well, why do they feel that way, you know? So that's something that I was thinking about a lot lately, and to just be, like, patient with them, and, you know, hear them out, because, like I said, they're there for you. They're saying this for you. But like I said, they just don't want to see you get hurt more often than not. And also, most of the time, they just don't have the full picture. They don't have the whole context that you do, which is why that only you know what's best for you. So this next lesson number 7, has to do with, stay in the shade for a second for this clip, but lesson number 7 has to do with priorities. And for me, I'm someone that, like, everything and everyone in my life at that time is my priority, is important to me. And I've learned that just being in your 20s and trying to get yourself set up, I guess, in a way for the rest of your life, it requires a lot more focus than that. So although, like, everything and everyone in my life is important and can be important, the ability to prioritize everything in your life, that is just so important, and it's something that I really kind of took for granted and haven't been doing the best job of. And now that I've kind of learned that lesson, I'm trying to take steps to kind of improve upon that, rectify that. That's lesson number 7. Learning to prioritize the things in your life, even if they're all important to you. All right, so lesson number 8 for these life lessons. Lesson number 8. That's a great question. I need to pull out my phone for this one. This is a good one. So, For me, I'm someone that is definitely a people person. I love being with people. I love being around people. And one thing I had realized was when you're out amongst people, when you're kind of there, like communicating, listening, and spending time with other people, you tend to, at least in my circumstance, I kind of tend to forget about myself and what I need in that moment. And what I'm saying is that we have to have certain boundaries set for ourselves, and when you have to do that within yourself. You have to do that within any sort of relationship, whether it's family, friendship, romantic relationship. You have to acknowledge that, you know, sometimes we're just not emotionally available for other people. So setting boundaries and setting time for yourself, that's lesson number 8. I'm about to get ready for dinner here, but first we're going to go on to lesson number 9. Lesson number 9 is good habits from toxic motivation is a fragile foundation. And what do I mean by that? I guess the way I think about it has to do with part of the reason that I started working out and exercising a long time ago. There's a lot of it that had to do with health complications just in my family history. A lot of it was just trying to live a healthier lifestyle. A lot of it was to get in shape for drum corps at the time. But there was definitely a certain part of it where growing up, I was very, very self-conscious about my appearance and my weight. And it was something that definitely ate at me for a long time. And I never really kind of, how do I phrase it? I never really kind of, I guess, learned to accept myself and accept my body for what it was, which eventually I did end up building healthier habits and exercising more and eating better and all that stuff. And although those are good habits, the fact that I never really the fact that was kind of like a toxic motivation to exercise, even if it wasn't the sole reason, it's definitely something that I wasn't actively aware that I was doing that, or that I had started exercising for that reason. And so when you realize that, when you are, become aware of that, it kind of it messes you up a little bit. It requires you to think and kind of like look at yourself in the mirror and be like, well, this is, you know, just because it's a good habit, the foundation for that habit is fragile, and you kind of have to make sure that you're adjusting accordingly in that regard, and learning to love yourself.
Well, I definitely plan to film a better transition than this, but especially because I was planning on not being able to finish all the life lessons in one day, but just kind of was enjoying my night and not really filming anything, so here we are. There's a hard cut from day 1 to day 2. Not my birthday anymore, but we're carrying on with the video with, I believe it's lesson, let's see here, lesson number 10, maybe? Are we on 10 yet? Also, no, I see it. Yeah, lesson number 10. Lesson number 10, it's when you look at someone's life, whether it's your own or someone else's, it's made up of a culmination of events. Like when you look at someone's life, it's like, oh, okay, this is everything that they did, or this is everything that happened to them in that time. But when you're actually going through life, when you're living, it's really all about how you react to what's going on in your life versus what's actually happening in your life. Because in a lot of those circumstances, we don't really have control of what's happening in our life. We do have control how we react to it. So actually living has more to do with reacting to what life throws at us.
Taking care of some laundry right now, but moving on to life lesson number 11. Yeah, 11. It has to do with when you're trying to make changes within your life, to, you know, the people that
you're closest with, the people that you see the most, it's important to kind of let people in on the changes you're trying to make within yourself, within your own life. So that way there's no, I guess, surprises in that way. You're kind of letting them in on like, hey, this is what I want for me in my life right now. And so that way they're like, they can also be in on the journey with you. They can kind of help support you on that journey as well. So being able to kind of let people in on the changes you're trying to make in your life, that's like a huge lesson that I learned this year as well.
The next lesson here, lesson number 12. This one was a tough one to kind of come to terms with, but it basically has to do with the idea of self-love, which is something that is thrown out and talked about quite a bit, but no one's really able to explain kind of like what it is or what it actually looks like. And the lesson that I learned within that was, from what I've gathered, I guess, that self-love looks different from person to person. It looks different. It takes on different forms. It means something different to everybody. And kind of understanding that, and then knowing for me, like, oh, what does it actually look like? Because I thought I did, but until this year, I actually kind of realized, oh, it actually looks more like this way, or I kind of been going about it, not the wrong way, but not quite in tune with me. So just understanding like, hey, self-love is a buzzword that's thrown around a lot. And sometimes it's hard for us to kind of really conceptualize what that looks like. So really kind of digging deep and checking in with yourself about like what it actually looks like, and how you view yourself and the habits that you build. That really like goes a long way in getting to know yourself a lot more. That's going to be lesson number 13, is that done is better than perfect. I'm definitely someone who uses, I guess, perfectionism as a kind of an excuse to not do something or to not finish something, whether it's a creative project or a task or whatever it might be. So for me, learning just to keep, especially with using my camera, whether it's photography or videography, just keep trying new things, keep creating, keep shooting, and share more, because I've definitely been kind of keeping everything to myself in a way, hence a very, I guess, not emotional, what's the word I'm looking for? This very intimate video that I'm making. This is kind of going back to a couple lessons ago of the idea behind self-love, and for me it kind of comes to just meeting a new person. I noticed within myself that I try to put the best version of myself out there, which is not inherently a bad thing in terms of trying to become the best version of yourself, but when you're kind of I noticed myself kind of meeting new people and getting to know new people, that I would kind of put out a version that like people would like maybe, or that like would get along with the most people, instead of just trying to just be I guess the most authentic, the most real version of myself. And then people are either gonna enjoy being around me or they're not, and that's okay. I'm not gonna be everyone's cup of tea. I'm aware of that, and so instead of just trying to, in a way, it's kind of being dishonest, but more so just like, I guess, trying to be more honest with myself.
Back on track. Lesson number 15. It has to do with whenever you're going through a tough time. I'm someone that's kind of a glass half full kind of guy, so naturally I try to look for the lesson in the struggle, I guess. And although I really enjoy doing that, and I think it's been really helpful for me in progressing through life, to make sure you allow yourself to specifically feel the pain in the situation, because that's when you allow yourself to feel the pain, that's when it allows you to kind of gain that understanding about a situation, the intuition about a situation. If I'm just kind of pushing it off to the side in order to be positive, it's not really the healthiest coping mechanism. So basically just kind of making sure that
I'm being honest with how I feel about a situation, and that it's okay if I don't feel all that great, but that the lesson will eventually come. All right, just got done with the workday, and we are off to lesson number 16. Lesson number 16 has to do with the idea of tunnel vision. And what I mean by that is what I had realized was sometimes we're just so in our routine or in our day-to-day, and we accept for what it is, like, hey, this is my everyday life now. But we have to make sure that after a certain amount of time, whether it's a month, 3 months, 6 months, whatever it may be, but just every so often, just check in with yourself in terms of like, okay, acknowledging, okay, this is what my day-to-day looks like. Where is this taking me? And then checking in with yourself about like, okay, this direction that it's taking me, is this where I want to go? Or do I need to make adjustments? Lesson number 17. We're on lesson number 17 now. This lesson has to do with, I guess, kind of the ability, the value of the ability to kind of find similarities in different situations. So what I mean by that is a lot of these life lessons that I'm talking about, or that I've talked about with other people when they talk about their biggest lesson or my biggest lesson this last year, is that, you know, I should have known that lesson, or I've learned this lesson before, but it was like in a different situation, different context. And so what that kind of makes me realize, and for this lesson, is that finding similarities, whether it's like, oh, like I'm having this issue with my job, or this issue with my family, or this issue with my partner, or this issue with how I spend my days, or basically just trying to kind of like, oh, I learned this lesson from this experience over here in work and career, and then, oh, but there's like a similarity, or like this lesson actually applies to my issue or my problem here that I need to address. So being able to kind of take lessons and apply them to different aspects of your life when it's necessary or when it's needed. I've just really learned the value in that. All right, y'all. It's been a wild week and a half between work, being out of town, having friends in town. What else? I got sick for a little bit too. It's just been, it's been wild. So I'm committed to finishing this video today, to finish shooting the video today, and then hopefully a quick edit on that. So we got the final 10 lessons. Starting off with lesson number 18, which is something that I've struggled with, I think, multiple times throughout my life, and I'm starting to really finally get a grasp on it, I think, hopefully, which is I place way too much emphasis on making the right decision. I put a lot of pressure and spend a lot of time on like, oh, what's the right decision in this scenario? What's the right decision in this situation? Rather than just, you know, think about your options, think about the different situations, and try to figure out, as best you can, obviously, just like, all right, what are the consequences of each situation? And then knowing that there won't be a right decision in that context. It'll just be, okay, these are all my options, these are all the situations that can occur, and you're not going to think of everything because we can't predict the future. So you just have to make sure, or I have to make sure, that I'm making the decision that's best for me in that moment, and understanding, all right, there are going to be consequences, and that you have to I have to be just willing to accept those consequences no matter the decision that I make. All right. That's an unfortunate sound that's happening during this video right now. Okay, sounds like it stopped. So lesson number 19, I'm gonna go right into lesson number 19, which is kind of like a segue from lesson 18. And that's because I place so much emphasis on making the right decision, when in reality, not only is there no such thing as a right decision in that moment, you won't really know if you made the right decision until after you've already made the decision. We're on number 20, life lesson number 20. Excuse me. This one is a good one. I think I'm actually gonna sit down for this. Okay, so this has to do with the meaning of life. And well, I haven't reached the end yet, so I'm still young. I'm still 28, and I have a lot to learn. But what I've discovered lately, in terms of, I guess, how I believe it now, is, let's say there's the way we ask the question. So like we ask like, oh, what is the meaning of life? And the way we ask it, I think, or the way we're expecting an answer to come out, is that it's going to be the same answer for every single person. And I don't think really that's the case. I wouldn't say it's like the opposite of that either. It was more so like, on the one hand, we have one meaning of life for everybody. On the other hand, we would have every single person has a different meaning of life. I think it's somewhere kind of in the middle. And what I mean by that is that there are going to be a few different meanings of life out there, and that different, I guess, groups of people, depending on just the culmination of all the life experiences that they have, would subscribe to different meanings of life based on those experiences. And because of life lesson 20, we go to life lesson 21, which is the fact that because of all that, we can't really have someone tell us or help us figure out what the meaning of life is, because through experiences, through education, through pushing ourselves past where we think we can go, or pushing ourselves past of what we think we can be, that's how we figure out what the meaning of life is for ourselves. Like, no one else can answer that but ourselves. Oops, did not angle this right. Not a whole lot better, but at least see my face. So life lesson number 22 is, I noticed that myself and those around me just have a harder time trying new things or making big changes in our lives. And that actually kind of leads in perfectly to this lesson in lesson 23, which is that it's not inherently harder to try new things, but there are just more excuses not to try new things as you get older. But yeah, let's talk about lesson 24. And this one is, I don't know, I heard someone say it one time and it really stuck with me. And lesson 24, and it's simple, it's almost kind of dumb in a way, but like the idea of procrastination, and we're all guilty of procrastination for a number of reasons. For me, I use perfectionism as an excuse. But the lesson is that procrastination is literally a waste of time. Lesson number 25. Almost there. Lesson number 25 is that, and when you think about it, time only moves forward. Time only keeps going. And I'm someone that is definitely guilty of trying to predict the future, or sometimes live in the past a little too much, just because I'm so nostalgic and I love like the memories that I've made in the past. But just making sure that time only moves forward, so we should really just follow that lead, and just stay present. Just stay like all you have is the present. The future hasn't happened yet, and you don't know what is going to happen, and the past already happened. So the only thing you have control over is your thoughts, your feelings in the present moment. All right, final two lessons. We got 26. Lesson 26 is that if we're not continuing to push ourselves past our comfort zone, and this encompasses all aspects of our own life,
I don't recommend doing them all at the same time, but pick one thing at a time and making sure that we're pushing ourselves past our comfort zone, because how else are we supposed to learn? How else are we supposed to grow? Routine is super important when it comes to accomplishing a goal, like putting in consistent work towards something, but there should also be effort put into something that makes us uncomfortable on a semi-consistent basis. I mean, for me personally, as long as I'm alive, I want to continue to learn, I want to continue to grow. Which honestly, I feel like that kind of really perfectly segues into the last lesson, lesson number 27. The 27th lesson I learned at age 27. And just when I feel like I have a better understanding of life than I do now, I still know nothing, which means I got to keep learning. I've learned a lot this year, and I've got a lot more to go. And just because I learned a lot doesn't mean I know anything. So that's the last lesson, is that at the end of the day, I really know nothing. So I got to keep learning. It's kind of scary talking about this as well. And I wasn't sure if I was going to make this video, to be honest. It took a lot of me kind of letting go of ego, letting go of like what other people might think. But I'm really excited to see how this turns out as I edit it, as I put it all together. If you made it this far, thank you. And I hope you're doing well. I hope you've learned a lot, and I hope life has been treating you well. And I hope to talk to you soon. Till next time.